What's up everyone, Ryan from Oakland Ghost, and I just got the NYX, and one thing the NYX is really fabulous at is building these really lush ambient textures. So what I'm thinking is this video will kind of get broken into two parts. I'll put chapters, of course. The first part, I'm going to hop on the Deluge and I'm going to show you how I use that to build semi-generative sequences. And then once we're happy with our sequence, we'll hop over to the NYX and we'll start doing some sound design and really developing that sound for our ambient texture. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to build the bones of a new ambient generative piece. Let's go ahead and hop over there on the Deluge. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is build up a generative pattern, or rather, semi-generative pattern using the Deluge. The Deluge does have some limited generative features, but it doesn't have quantization to scale. So if I go truly random with the pitch, it's just going to be, there's not going to be a lot of musical quality to it. So we're going to definitely have to go a more semi-generative route. And basically what semi-generative means in this case is I'm going to tell it what notes it can choose from, like create the pool of notes from which the Deluge can choose, but it's still going to randomly select when and where it picks those notes. So the first thing that I'd like to do is just right off the bat, I kind of like to set gates that just so my creativity gets a little more limited. I like to create a little box. So I'm going to set a scale. I don't know what I want this to be yet. Let's go F sharp. Sure. We're going to go F sharp. And I think the other thing that I'd like to do, is I'm going to make it pentatonic. And the reason I want to go pentatonic is since we're going to be randomly selecting notes, and sometimes they might even play on top of each other. Initially I'm going to have this be monophonic, but the NYX is actually duophonic, so it is possible that notes could land on top of each other if I choose to set it up that way. And eventually I'm also going to want to add some other elements. So pentatonic has less notes in a scale. It only has 5 notes in a scale as opposed to 8. So the chances that you're going to hit kind of a sour note or something that's a little more dissonant is greatly reduced, right? So yeah, that's why we're doing pentatonic. So these are the notes in our scale. I'm using MIDI channel 5, which is going to the NYX right now. What we're hearing from the NYX is super, like, there's the cutoffs all the way open. You know, there's no resonance on it. It's just it's a simple saw wave with so it's a saw wave with, yeah, I've added a bit of decay on the end there. So right now the way it's set up, how long I hold the note here doesn't matter. The envelope is being created over there. I might change my mind later so that we can vary the lengths of some of the big notes that are going to happen in our generative sequence. But for now, I'm just going to let what's happening over there. We're worried about the sound design when we get to the sound design part. This is about creating the sequence. So now that we've created our scale, the next thing that I'd like to do is I'm just gonna set the tempo. This I might change once we actually start doing sound design. I do like to establish a scale when I don't have a melody in mind or I don't have an idea in mind. I do like just randomly picking a scale off the bat, because then it just kind of forces me to work within that scale and find something I like, and not rely on going back to scales that I often play in, right? It's keys and roots and stuff. This is like, I don't think I ever write anything in F sharp minor pentatonic, so it should be something unique to me, which is what I'm after. Now I've set the tempo. I'm going to set it to 80 for now because I know I'm going to want it to be slow and evolving. That might change later. I might want to speed it up a little bit or slow it down depending on where we land with the sound design. But for now, I think that's good enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start, I'm going to make this an 8-bar sequence. So pretty long. Then I'll zoom out a bit because it does not have to be this big. All right. 16th notes is probably just fine. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to start laying some notes here. It doesn't really matter where they are for now, because once I set it up to be generative, and I'll show you how I do that, they won't necessarily be landing in the same place. So we got our roots. I'm going to do it like it maybe every half. I'll just do a couple. mostly it's down that I think is going to be more interesting. I feel like the lower notes are going to be more interesting than the higher notes, but you never know. All right. So just so you can hear what's going on now, we'll just play them real quick. So, you know, they're going through. There's probably more notes than I really want in here, but that's all right. We're gonna experiment here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start setting note probability. And what that means is I'm gonna use a percentage to say this should hit. The probability of this note getting triggered is gonna be, let's say, 60%. And I think I'm gonna, any of the root notes, I'm gonna weight those a little heavier than some of the other notes, but I want to keep them all mostly under 50, I think. So we're just gonna go down the line, and I'm gonna randomly assign different values to all this stuff. Somewhere around the 50% mark. So this is the first step. And again, I'm not thinking too much about it. I'm just totally randomly doing this. And what this means is, for example, this note has a 15% chance of triggering every time the playhead goes past it. So it may trigger and it may not. You never know. All right, so I've set the probability on all these notes. So now the next step, so far what we've got is now, we'll see what happens. This is just an example. So the notes aren't hitting every time. And every time it goes through the sequence, it's gonna, that random trigger is gonna happen again. So you don't know what's gonna hit and what's not gonna hit. So that's the first step. So that basically is establishing the generative nature of the when these notes will trigger. The next step that I want to do is vary the where. So right now they're all coming on a downbeat basically, right? And the way I'm gonna do that is if you hold the pad that you want and you slide this dude over, now this thing is a little bit more than 8 bars. And so for each of the notes that I know that I have something on, I'm gonna change it. So some I'll do shorter, and I'm gonna do them just randomly. And by doing this at totally random kind of areas, you don't know what you're going to get. This is, so every time the playhead goes, these won't be going at the same spot. Great. And now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set, right now the play direction is forward. Now I'm going to set it to ping pong. So these are going to go back. Now the playhead's going to go back and forth. It's going to go all the way through. And then when it hits the end of whatever the note is that it's playing, it's going to go to the end, and then it's going to come back, and it's going to come the opposite direction. So the note can get triggered in a couple different ways. So let's just take a look. So now that we have that kind of set up and we have some probability going, let's just see what that sounds like. So now the first time it goes through, it is going to happen on the downbeat, but as this thing evolves over time, they're going to start playing on all different times in all different places. So now you can see how each one of these has a different length playhead. So yeah, again, all the white lines are playheads, and it's gonna go all the way down, come all the way back, and it's different for all of these different things. This would be if it was in 8 bars, which it's, you know, as you can see, everything's playing different now. And hopefully what that's gonna do for us is create a really cool generative sequence. So right now it feels a little sparse. I might have to speed up the tempo, or I might have to adjust some of the randomness to increase it so that it's more likely that notes get triggered. But I think for now, that's at least good enough for us to hop over onto the NYX and start really kind of developing the sound design. So let's do that next. And then we, you know, if we have to make adjustments over here to make it more interesting, we can come back and do that. All right, let's hop over to the NYX. All right, so we're back over on the NYX. Let's run our sequence real quick. And now I know the first thing I'm gonna wanna do is we want a very long, let's really let those go. I'm going to switch it to duo mode just in case 2 notes kind of happen on top of each other. I don't know if it will. Let's get some reverb in here. I'm trying to get the decay to, or the modulation to open the filter for me automatically. So right now I'm using it as basically an envelope generator. So you can hear it opening the filter as it goes. Try to see if I can add a little bit of noise. So I just turned the second oscillator up an octave. Come on. That sounds awesome. Again, it's random. I never know when a note's gonna hit. See, there was something, they had a couple overlapping notes, which only works when you're in duophonic mode. Basically what'll happen is oscillator 1 will play the lower note, oscillator 2 will play the higher note. It's not polyphonic, but it can play up to 2 notes at once. I mean, I could just play for hours, really locking this texture in. But that sounded pretty tasty. So, I think I'm going to call it for this episode. As you can see, you can build a nice semi-generative sequence on the Deluge. And then the NYX just has these. Oh, come on. Those are some tasty layers, so don't be surprised if we have future episodes where we build on top of this, because I'm really happy with where we're at right now. Alright guys, until next time, if you found this helpful, please consider subscribing. It'd be a big help to us. We're knocking on the door to 1,000, so if you wanted to say you were one of the first 1,000 people to find us, this is your chance. A subscription would definitely help us out in supporting us. I'll catch you next time. Ryan out.